Hello and welcome to Omni Deep Dive. We explore any topic from finance and technology to literature and science. Sit back, focus, and get ready to dive deep.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you've ever treated sleep as just passive downtime, a necessary evil you cut short to get more done, then this is for you.
It really is.
We're moving way beyond the generic advice of just try to get 8 hours. Today, we're talking about something much more active. Sleep engineering.
Exactly. We're approaching sleep not as rest, but as a high-leverage biological protocol. We define sleep engineering as the conscious, meticulous optimization of everything that happens while you're unconscious.
The whole framing shifts. Sleep is not rest. It is mandatory neurooptimization.
It is. And for anyone focused on performance, on cognitive output, this is probably the single highest ROI activity there is.
It's the biological force multiplier. This is when your brain is cleaning out toxins, consolidating memory, regulating your emotional stability. It makes every single waking hour better.
If you don't optimize the cleanup, the uptime suffers. So our mission today is to, define this engineering process, break down the core science of how the brain actually cleans itself.
And that involves a pretty groundbreaking discovery from just over a decade ago.
A huge one. And then we're going to tackle that inevitable cultural conflict that happens when science tells you to slow down and the world tells you to speed up.
Okay, let's start with the fundamental puzzle. For centuries, this stumped scientists. The brain uses a massive amount of the body's energy, but it doesn't have a traditional lymphatic system.
Right, which is how every other major organ gets rid of its cellular waste.
So the big question was, how does this incredibly busy organ take out the garbage?
And the breakthrough was the discovery of the glymphatic system.
The glymphatic system.
Think of it as the brain's own specialized internal janitorial service. The name actually comes from the fact that it relies heavily on glial cells, specifically astrocytes. That's the G in glymphatic.
Okay, so it's a dedicated plumbing network. But if it doesn't have a pump, like the heart for blood, how does this cleansing fluid, the cerebrospinal fluid or CSF, how does it get pushed through dense brain tissue?
That is the crucial mechanical difference. The CSF, that's our cleaning agent, it gets pumped into the brain's functional tissue, what we call the parenchyma, along these specialized little spaces that surround the arteries.
So it's sort of piggybacking on the arterial pathways.
It is. And the force driving it is actually linked to your cardiac output. The rhythmic pulse from your heartbeat is literally helping to pump that cleanup fluid into the brain.
That's a fascinating coupling. The physical beat of your heart helps push the fluid in.
Precisely. Now, once the CSF is in there, it has to mix with the fluid that's already surrounding the cells, the interstitial fluid.
And that mixing process is key, I imagine.
It's critical. And it's helped along by these special channels called aquaporin-4 or AQP4. They act like tiny gates on the cells, and they let the fluid exchange happen efficiently. Then all that waste-filled fluid gets pushed out to pathways around the veins.
And what's it clearing out? What's the toxic cargo we're trying to get rid of here?
Well, general metabolic waste, but the main targets, the really neurotoxic stuff, are proteins like amyloid beta and tau.
The ones directly linked to things like Alzheimer's.
Exactly. If those accumulate, they play a central role in the development of neurodegenerative diseases.
Which brings us to sleep. If this glymphatic system is so crucial for clearing that junk out, when does it actually work best?
And this is the big reveal. This is the core of sleep engineering. The glymphatic system's activity is markedly higher during sleep.
Not just a little bit higher.
No. Some models show a twofold increase in solute clearance. And for amyloid beta specifically, the clearance rate actually doubles during sleep compared to when you're awake.
So sleep isn't a break, it's the mandatory optimized cleaning cycle.
That's the paradigm shift.
Okay, so we know the what and the why. How do we engineer the conditions for this to happen? We need to look at the two biological levers that govern sleep.
Right. We rely on what's called the two-process model. You have two opposing forces. First is process C, your circadian rhythm. That's your internal 24-hour clock, and it's mainly affected by light.
And the second?
That's process S, the homeostatic sleep drive. Think of it as sleep pressure. It builds up all day long because of a chemical called adenosine. The longer you're awake, the more adenosine you have, the more you want to sleep.
So engineering your sleep is about getting those two processes perfectly aligned.
And aiming for one specific stage of sleep. We're not just targeting any sleep. We are aiming for the deep cleaning mode.
Slow wave sleep.
Slow wave sleep, or SWS. NREM stage 3. This is where the magic really happens for the glymphatic system. The conditions become perfect.
How so?
First, a neurotransmitter called norepinephrine, the one that keeps you alert and vigilant, its levels just plummet. And that drop in neural activity allows for something incredible. The actual space between your brain cells, it expands.
It physically expands by how much?
By up to 60%.
60%. That's massive. So to help you visualize this, if the brain tissue is a busy city, during deep sleep, the streets suddenly widen by more than half their size.
That is the perfect analogy. It physically lowers the resistance for all that cleaning fluid to flow through. The brain literally opens the floodgates.
And it's not just passive, right? The brain is actively involved.
It's actively pumping. The electrical activity during SWS, those big, slow delta waves, is tightly coupled with the CSF inflow. The brain's own rhythm is helping to power the wash cycle.
Let's briefly contrast that with REM sleep.
Sure. REM sleep, where we dream, is much more metabolically active. It's for emotional processing, creativity. But because the brain is so active that 60% expansion doesn't happen, clearance is way less efficient.
So you need that sustained block of SWS to get the job done.
You absolutely do.
So if we need that massive expansion, our job is to create the perfect external conditions to force SWS to happen. Let's talk controls. Light and temperature.
Light is number one for setting your circadian clock, process C. You must get direct outdoor sunlight within 30 to 60 minutes of waking.
And not through a window.
Not through a window. Your brain needs the full intensity of that light to set the timer for the day. Then, in the evening, the blue light protocol is non-negotiable. Strictly limit blue light from screens and LEDs after 8 p.m.
Because that specific spectrum of light just kills your melatonin production.
It slams the brakes on it, telling your brain it's still daytime. It directly interferes with process C.
Okay, light is sorted. Next, the thermal hack, the warm bath effect.
This one feels counterintuitive, but it works. Your core body temperature has to drop by about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit to initiate and maintain sleep.
So you can't just crawl into a cool bed if your body is still warm.
You'll struggle. The hack is to take a hot shower or bath about 90 minutes before bed. When you get out, your body rapidly radiates heat from your hands and feet, causing your core temperature to plummet.
And that sharp drop is the signal to the brain that it's time to sleep.
It's a powerful biological trigger. And for the room itself, you want to maintain that drop. The ideal temperature is cool, somewhere around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit.
Let's move to more targeted interventions, starting with the most common one. Caffeine. What's the protocol there?
We are very firm on this. Stop all caffeine intake 10 hours before bed.
10 hours? That's earlier than most people think.
Much earlier. You might feel like you can fall asleep just fine, but caffeine has what's called a quarter life, which can be 10, 12 hours. Even trace amounts are still blocking adenosine receptors in your brain.
So even if you fall asleep, you're not getting into that deep restorative SWS. It's wrecking the architecture of your sleep.
Precisely. You're shortchanging the whole point of the process.
Okay, and what about supplements? What's the clinical evidence for things that actually support these pathways?
Well, melatonin is the obvious one. It's the hormone that cues relaxation. Now, results in studies are a bit mixed, but a review of 7 trials showed 5 of them had statistically significant improvements in sleep quality.
Then there's L-Theanine, the amino acid from green tea.
L-Theanine is interesting. It gets into the brain easily and increases calming neurotransmitters like GABA while lowering excitatory ones. But the key is that it increases alpha brainwave activity.
And alpha waves are that calm, focused state, sort of like meditation.
Exactly. It's the perfect bridge state to help the brain transition smoothly into sleep. Doses of 200 to 400 milligrams have been shown to work quite well.
What about magnesium?
Magnesium is involved in regulating GABA, muscle relaxation, melatonin production. It does a lot. The nuance here is that if your magnesium levels are already fine, a supplement might not do much.
But if you're low?
If you have low serum magnesium, then yes, it shows significant potential for improving sleep quality. And combining it with L-theanine can be synergistic. One for mental relaxation, one for physical.
And we also saw a mention of vitamin D?
Yes, there are vitamin D receptors in the sleep-regulating parts of the brain. One study using a high dose, 50,000 IU biweekly, showed it enhanced sleep quality and reduced the time it took to fall asleep. It's another piece of the puzzle.
So this all brings us to the major philosophical hurdle. We've laid out the science. Sleep engineering is a mandatory process for high performance. But then you have this powerful cultural antagonist.
The sleep when you're dead hustle culture.
Right, the grind at all costs narrative.
That narrative isn't just biologically irresponsible, it's it's scientifically illiterate. The evidence is just so stark.
How stark?
Getting less than 6 hours of sleep creates a level of cognitive impairment equivalent to being legally drunk. So when someone brags about their lack of sleep, they're basically in your Ferrari. Yeah, you might keep running for a while, but you are actively engineering a catastrophic failure down the line.
And the pathology itself makes the problem worse.
Absolutely. The Tau buildup actually starts to damage the sleep centers in the brain, which leads to worse sleep, which leads to more buildup. It's a self-accelerating cycle into decline.
Which brings us to the final debate: irregular schedules. Polyphasic sleep, biphasic. Trying to break sleep into tiny chunks to get more work done.
From a scientific standpoint, these patterns are largely seen as biologically destructive. The evidence strongly suggests that monophasic sleep, one single 6 to 8 hour block, is superior for detoxification.
Because you need that long, sustained period for the channels to widen and the pump to run a full, deep cycle.
Exactly. Split sleep simply doesn't give you the optimal architecture for that massive, sustained fluid flow. You shortchange the clean cycle every single time. For high-leverage cognitive maintenance, the single, long-engineered block is king.
So what does this all mean for you, for the person listening who wants to perform at their best?
It means sleep engineering is a critical, proactive strategy for your neurological health. It is the necessary rejection of this idea that struggle or deprivation is some kind of badge of honor.
The foundation of everything you do when you're awake, your memory, your mood, your focus, it all rests on the efficiency of this nightly cleaning process we just detailed.
Prioritize the engineering, and maximum performance will follow.
And for a final provocative thought to consider as you optimize your own night.
Animal research suggests that the clearance of these neurotoxic proteins is actually more efficient in the lateral recumbent position.
Which is sleeping on your side.
Sleeping on your side, more efficient than on your back or your stomach. This hints that our sleeping posture itself might be an evolutionary adaptation for detoxification.
So if something as simple as the position you lie in can influence the clearance of the very proteins linked to Alzheimer's disease, what other seemingly insignificant, non-engineered daily habit are we currently relying on that might be quietly undermining our long-term cognitive health?
That's something to think about tonight as you settle in for the ultimate clean cycle.
That wraps up this Omni Deep Dive episode. Thank you for listening. If you found value in today's deep dive, please click like and subscribe to our channel. Take care.